Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. I wanted to go ahead and drop this video today on Etsy, the behind the scenes of what is actually going on and why is their platform changing. If you Google right now on YouTube, Etsy, most of the videos you're going to see other than some basic sales guides and things like that is that you probably notice some of the things are changing and things indeed are changing. There's only really one thing that's changing, okay? The people who are basically interested in a fast sale, and I'm going to talk about this, are moving all to Etsy. Now, some people might say, what are you talking about? Interested in a fast sale? What is going on? Etsy is introducing new things, new constraints to be able to limit the amount of sellers on the platform. That's really what they're doing. That's their main goal. Now, they're not going to come out and say this, but when they implement, for example, this new $15 fee, right? When people have to join with a $15 fee, or when they're joining, they have to verify their accounts, especially if they're joining from other countries. A lot of these things that are coming into play are not because they care about safety or anything like that. Etsy has the ability to procure safety since years ago. Etsy is a multi-$100 million company on a yearly basis. I think they reach something like 90-something million visitors or buyers, in the last year. Etsy has the ability to control safety. It's not a safety issue. What it is it's a mitigation tactic. And we've seen this on Redbubble. In fact, I actually want to show you guys something here on my computer. I want to show you something right here. Let's go ahead and go to Google Trends for a second. And I kind of want to show this to kind of prove this. Redbubble and Etsy have been relatively an open market at the year 2021, right? Especially towards the end of 2021, it was kind of the limit towards that. So about this point, right, Redbubble and Etsy, I want to put this into consideration, we're both open markets. And when I say open markets, I mean anyone, probably not anyone. You have to be in a certain country for Etsy. But at a certain point in time, you can create an account. Let's just assume you're in the United States. You can create an account on Etsy, right, on Redbubble, and sell that very same day. For the most part, there were really no limits. And the reason why this had existed is because they were open markets. Now, what happened is after a certain period of time, Redbubble started feeling the grunt of this issue, okay? Majority of the people who now go to Etsy are people who originated from the print-on-demand space. And Redbubble had a huge boost during COVID, not only because people were making sales on the platform and there was a lot of stimulus money being pumped into the economy, and of course, people are going to spend their money, but also, more importantly, people need to go somewhere as sellers. In the beginning, it was Redbubble, and when I say in the beginning, it was in the beginning of this huge economy flush of money. They're essentially flushing money into the rich's hands. Now, how does that happen? They don't give them money. Now, if that's what you're thinking, they're not giving the rich money. What happens is people who own businesses, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, all these people, they'll make money off of the backs of people who receive the stimulus. So people who receive the stimulus, all these people making, $1,200-$1,300 extra a month, whatever the number was, I don't even remember what it was, but people who are receiving income from stimulus, what are they going to do? They're going to go spend their money, right? And when people go spend their money, what does that fuel? It fuels the rich because they're the ones who own the businesses. It fuels investors. It fuels everybody who's on the other side of the spend. And what happens is when companies have more money to spend, well, their businesses are doing well. And once again, Redbubble was going through what Etsy has previously went through. And if you notice how this trend is kind of decreasing, especially since 2020, it's decreasing dramatically, is because Redbubble, this is a Redbubble chart here in red, has went through exactly, once again, what Etsy is going to go through and is starting to go through. See, in Etsy, there is an influx of people moving on to Etsy as sellers right now. People from all kinds of countries who are really not generating any extra income for the platform, okay? And what does that cause? That causes a problem. It causes a severe problem. In fact, what that causes is extreme server costs that have been loaded onto the Etsy platform. Now, people don't think of a cost with Etsy. They think that, it's free, it's this, it's that. But remember, Etsy as a company has to pay for server costs. Every single time a person comes to the platform and decides to upload their products and start selling on the platform, right? They are weighing down the server on their small fraction of a share, right? Of how much that weight. That could be, if they have 100 products, they're paying for that. If they have 2 products, they're paying for that. And mind you, that 20-cent fee is really not going to do much to be able to cover the Etsy service costs. So, for example, if you're going to put up a product on Etsy that is going to be renewed, that 20-cent fee is really not much. Really not much at all. In fact, you have to keep in mind what kind of deal that Etsy has with credit card processing companies to be able to process that 20-cent fee. For us regular people, if we were to sell on a platform, make money, we have credit card processing fees of something like 33 cents plus a 3.2% fee. Sometimes it used to be 2.9%, but now it's a little bit higher. But the point is that they have to even work out a fee, so they're not making any money off that 20-cent fee. So this is what a lot of people don't understand. And Etsy as a platform is dealing now with the grunt of an influx of more sellers. What does this really mean for the long-term growth of Etsy? This creates a really big problem for people who are selling honestly and openly on Etsy. What is it creating? It's creating a problem where Etsy as a platform now has to deal with banning, has to deal with closing down accounts much more frequently than it used to have. Now, I want you guys to notice something is that what Etsy is dealing with, it's dealing with a much larger influx of sellers, not buyers. The amount of buyers that have been increasing over time has been, let's just say, 5 to 10%, maybe even 20% a year if you take out the whole COVID experience. Okay? That's not enough to support, once again, the amount of sellers. So what really this creates is a bunch of people at the bottom of Etsy, let's just say the lower 70%, who are making little to no money whatsoever, and that number is growing. And then you have people at the top, which are the few, who are making the majority of the money. But once again, these new sellers, or most of these new sellers, not all, but most of these new sellers are the influx of people who do not make money on the platform, which in return or in turn for Etsy is just a bunch of sellers who don't make money, who cost the platform money. And what does that mean, though? What does that mean for people like me and you who earn a little bit on Etsy, maybe a few thousand here and there every month, maybe not making 50, 100 grand a month, but making small amounts? What does that actually mean? It means that we have a higher chance to put our accounts in jeopardy. Just like these new creators who are going on Etsy and trying things out. And by the way, Etsy is growing as an attention-based platform, not really in terms of sales, it's growing in an attention, right? And part of the reason is, and I hate to say this, but it's YouTube creators. And YouTube creators are not to blame, but you also have to keep in mind where people start on YouTube, right? Once again, during COVID, YouTube, if you search the word Redbubble was through the roof. Everybody was interested in Redbubble-based content, right? And there were so many people creating Redbubble-based content. But now Etsy has kind of taken that spot. Not many people are talking about Redbubble anymore. In fact, most people don't give a damn about Redbubble because it was never really a motion of their own sales process. It was never really a thing that provided income for them, but it was something that provided income to talk about. It wasn't something that actually was in their business model. It was just something that brought in subscribers, brought in views, brought in attention, but never really built business on it. So a lot of the people that you've seen maybe talked about Redbubble are now talking about Etsy. Why is that the case? It's because Etsy's the new thing that brings in attention. Etsy's the new focus, right? And maybe in a year or two, there will be something else past Etsy that's bringing in a lot of attention. When I say past Etsy, I'm not saying that Etsy is going to fail as a company, lose money, and not be able to be successful. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that it's the thing that's grabbing the most attention in the search engines right now on YouTube. And YouTube is the largest fueler, right, for the sales economy. When people go into becoming salesmen or saleswomen on these platforms, sellers on these platforms, it's being fueled by YouTube. If a YouTuber can go out there and make a video and get 100,000 views on how they made an extra, $100 or $1,000 or even $50,000 on Etsy, guess what? People are going to follow the video and they're going to try themselves. That could be an extra 20, 30,000 people from just a single video attempting to create accounts, sell products, and yet generate no revenue. And it's not their own fault because it takes more than just one video to learn on how to be successful on a platform. So the point here of everything that I'm trying to say is that this is to be expected. All the changes that are occurring on Etsy now are not occurring because Etsy cares about, your end result or how successful you are, or they're worried about, security purposes. They're charging fees. They're deleting accounts because their servers are being constantly overloaded and they don't know how to handle it. One of the things that they could immediately do to control the amount of people who move into the platform is create a $15 fee to enter the platform. They don't want all these people to enter. They want people who are going to make money. And that was the case maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. But now, because Etsy is blowing up even more on YouTube, there are more Etsy creators than there ever was, and they're getting more views than they ever were getting, right? They are following the money. The viewers are following the money. This was the same exact thing that happened about 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago with Shopify. There was a moment in time where Shopify blew up as a platform, and there were millions of people creating Shopify accounts, right? And what happened was these people didn't really have enough experience or weren't willing to get enough experience, weren't willing to stay in the game for long, and they would create Shopify accounts and that store would be closed down within the same month, right? And so what happened was Shopify started to develop this reputation to become a get-rich-quick scheme. And the reason why is because people were creating stores. They weren't successful, but they were watching the successful creator start a store, make $100,000 in their first week, 2 weeks, whatever. They scale it up to $1 million in a few months, and they roll off into the sunset. The viewer looks at that and says, okay, this is an easy money-making opportunity. And it's not just one viewer. This is most people who view these type of videos, right? They go out there and they create it. Once again, they're not aware of the kind of work that goes into it. They see a short 20-minute video and they believe that this is the end-all be-all. And once again, YouTube creators don't necessarily do it for their business. Some of them do. Some of them don't. I'll say most of them don't. But most of the YouTube creators are looking to garner views very quickly. That's their business. Their business is the view game. Let me try to get as many views as I possibly can. And who's to blame them, right? It's their business. The point is that they're going to create content in something that makes you click, makes you watch. That's the whole point. It's a media company. The same thing as a news channel. A news channel wouldn't get clicks if they weren't promoting traumatic events all the time. They wouldn't get attention if bad things weren't happening all the time. Nobody would care. So what happens is the headlines have to be dramatized and, everything has to be traumatic and terrible. And that's kind of how the influx of viewership comes in. So because of the viewership on YouTube, right, on Shopify, everybody went in troves to become Shopify sellers. Most did not succeed. In fact, when I say most, I would say easily about 97 to 98% did not succeed. Maybe 1 or 2% broke even, and the other 2% maybe became successful, right? Out of the 2% that did become successful, who stayed with it long enough, 1% of the 2%, which is really 1/1000th of a percent, actually became massively successful. We're talking hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in sales, right? But my point is, with all that I'm saying, is that when something is being promoted online, many people are going to go to it. The platform has to have the infrastructure to be able to handle that cost because it comes with a cost. For a platform like Etsy, Etsy only makes money off of the spread. It doesn't necessarily make money off of the sale of the product in a large amount. So for example, if I sell a t-shirt, they're going to take their small fee. They're not going to take the money of the actual t-shirt that I'm selling. That money goes to me. I pay off my costs. They take a small fee, etc. They're making the spread. So they're making a small amount. And their small amount that they're making cannot pull off the infrastructure, like I said, of the influx of sellers, right? And you have to also realize that how does Etsy generate traffic for its users? Two methods: search engine optimization, which takes a long time to kick in, and also ads. So they have a system internally with Etsy to have off-site advertising. They pay for ads, right, for products that people are searching based on the tags and the titles that are basically added on Etsy products, right? So they're paying for these ads. That is an additional cost. And this is not really some developers working behind the scenes 24/7. This is an automated system. So they're looking at numbers on the screen. They're saying, okay, our costs went up 35% this month. Our viewers stayed the same, or our sales stayed the same, or close to the same. Maybe went up 2%, 5%, whatever the number is. How can we make up this big difference? And it's not just a 1 month phenomenon. A lot of the times when you have a company with a lot of positions, founder, co-founder, then you have CEOs, CFOs, managers, you have all these different levels. The message tends to travel very slowly. And that's just the nature of it, right? And so by the time the information comes to the decision maker and becomes aware of the issue, it could be 2, 3, 4, 5 months of a problem continuing. And then by the time the decision maker makes the decision and then it becomes implemented in code on the site, could take another 4, 5, 6 months. It could take a year before real decisions are made and changed. So you're looking at a position now where Etsy is not only aware of this problem, but they have to make changes based on it. So if you look up things like, for example, Etsy, things are changing, right? Let's just, as a perfect example, these are perfect examples of what's actually going on behind the scenes with Etsy, is that they have too much infrastructure of sellers. Too many people are becoming sellers each and every day, by the second, by the minute. And they have to slow this down. By them implementing a fee is just one example of slowing it down. By them adding in phone verification is another example of slowing things down, right? They're going to keep doing these things. And they're going to do that because at the end of the day, they're a company. They want to become profit positive. It's the only way everybody gets paid at the end of the day. And I'm pretty sure nobody wants to have a company that's in the negative. So unfortunately, when a decision is made, a lot of innocents are going to have to die off with it. There's going to be a lot of these bots that are going to delete your accounts. You're going to get banned. You're going to have these issues. There are a lot of sellers that are going to have these issues that they might feel didn't deserve to go through that. We've seen that primarily on Redbubble. This was a perfect example, right? With Redbubble, back when it was at its peak, is that when it was at its peak, it took too long for the message to move up and down the chain. By the time COVID was over, a year had passed by, a year and a half had passed by, then finally Redbubble was making implements of change to be able to mitigate the issues. But at that point in time, the issue was already over. Less people were interested in joining. They were on to the next thing. So keep in mind, guys, what's actually going on behind the scenes with Etsy is not what Etsy's, respectfully, it's not what Etsy's saying. I think they said it was about security and all this nonsense. They're not going to tell you that, hey, we cannot afford to keep dealing with a high amount of sellers and the money's not moving up. We can't do that. So we're going to have to do things to get you guys out of here. That's essentially what's happening. And you can get banned by a robot. It could happen. I'm not going to say that it's going to happen to everybody, but this is why I've said since day one that I even started this YouTube channel, the most important thing is to diversify. whether you create your own website, whether you have multiple stores, whatever you do to diversify, to create income from different areas, understand that that is the best move you can possibly make. Don't rely just on Etsy. Understand that there is going to come a time where your account can disappear, and it can happen to anyone. Now, some people might argue with me and say, I've been on Etsy for 5-6 years and nothing happened to me. Sure, nothing happened to you, but look at the other hundreds of thousands of people where their accounts have been deleted, been banned for, some reason that could seem trivial. Maybe, somebody gave them a bad review and they think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, truth be told is that you don't always get banned on Etsy for reasons like that. I mean, the reasons differ. There's so many reasons, right? The point is that you're signing an at-will contract. When you start to sell on Etsy, you have to understand that they get to choose who gets on their platform. You are at will, meaning they can release you at will, at their own choice. It doesn't matter if you're doing great. It doesn't matter if you're doing terrible. This is one of the positions where Etsy as a company is going to suffer financially unless they make decisions faster. And yeah, it could result in people being removed off the platform, aside from the number of lawsuits that they have to deal with, because of infringement and things like that. So that's really what's going on behind the scenes with Etsy. I've called this many times when Redbubble was going through. I've talked about this. When Society6 had to implement their fee, way even before they implemented their fee, I called it. This is just basic economics and understanding from a company side what's really going on. They can't come out and tell you, hey guys, we can't handle this. We're going to have to ban some people. They're not going to tell you that, because then they're going to develop a negative relationship with their viewers. And now social media, with the way words travels very, very quickly. Lots of, negativity can come from a simple message. So it's kind of like a PR move when you say, oh, we're making decisions for security and we want to make sure everybody's doing well on the platform. And all that's nonsense. The reality is that companies have to make decisions, hard decisions, to remove people, right? And sometimes, just like in war, there are many innocents that will die. And the reality is you have to be prepared. You have to. There's no other way, unless you want to get steamrolled through. And it's really just a insurance policy, but some people have to cash in on that insurance policy, unfortunately. That's just the reality. So I wanted to point this out because I want to kind of show something here. If you look here at this chart, okay, Redbubble, TeePublic. Redbubble was approaching its peak. If we look here in the past, let's just go here since 2004. Redbubble was approaching its peak, okay, 2020. And then it started shooting downward. That's not what happened on TeePublic. Why is that? TeePublic, since its inception, has had a application type process. When I say application type process, what I really mean is that they don't just approve everyone. Same like with merch by Amazon. They don't just approve everyone to sell on the platform. It's you are picked, you're chosen, which is why TeePublic is not dealing with the issue that Redbubble has been dealing with, that Etsy will deal with, that Society6 has dealt with, that Zazzle has dealt with. They don't have this kind of issue because they have a standard to who they accept in the first place. Etsy, mark my words, will deal with this. Fees will go up on Etsy. People will be banned on Etsy. And a lot of people are going to be mad at the company. Mark my words. This is almost a guarantee. Okay? So you might as well, from this point on, begin your planning strategy on how and just in case to escape if you need to. Because, mind you, there's a lot of, like I said, innocent people that have to go down. It's just the way it is. This is how these businesses are. There's no human being behind this. There's no soul. There's no spirit. It's numbers. You are numbers on a screen. You have to figure out, okay, if my Etsy business goes down today, if I lose the $3,000, $5,000 that I'm making today, right, what can I do? Am I going to be homeless on the streets? Am I going to make no money? What am I going to do? You have to start now. And if you haven't started already, well, you should be started. If you're a watcher of this YouTube channel, hopefully you've been doing that for a long time, diversifying. But, if you're in a position, especially where you're doing well now, that's the most important time is to diversify, especially if you're doing well. So, things changing. That's just the way it is. That's the way life is. It's either you're going to get steamrolled through or you're going to be one of the lucky survivors. Regardless, it's going to be risky to move through life without an insurance plan. When I say insurance, I'm obviously not talking about the typical insurance. I'm talking about diversifying, creating other business avenues, creating other sources of income. So, this is just a word of advice, my opinion. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you guys for watching, and peace out. Bye.